Congratulations. Bought your first gun, have you? It is your constitutional right, after all, to own a gun. Buying your first gun, being a first-time gun owner, is in many ways like my buying an oboe. You would not expect me to be able to play Mozart anytime soon, would you? But there's one critical difference between the oboe and the handgun. I cannot kill myself. I cannot kill another person with an oboe. Though you have a right to own that gun, your right comes with absolute and awesome responsibilities. So this 9-step program, which will help you become both safe and proficient, begins with safety. Our video's mission, simply stated, safety first, then effectiveness, then proficiency. First, all guns are loaded. No matter what anybody tells you, the gun is loaded, always. Let me say that again. That gun is loaded. Treat them that way until you yourself open the chamber and see that the gun is empty. Until then, you must assume that the gun is loaded. Don't point your weapon at anything you aren't willing to kill or destroy. Here's what new shooters often do at the range. Question comes up. By the way, you know this is not a real gun, right? They turn to their teacher. Not okay, they've just pointed right at him. Here's how to do that. Whether you point it up or down depends upon whether there are people upstairs or whether there's a concrete floor or whatever. Turn it whichever way is safe, away. Now, especially be careful of pointing the weapon at yourself. People shoot themselves often when they are drawing their weapon, but even more commonly when they're putting the gun away back in purse or holster. Now, right here it's pointing to the hip, isn't it? An even bigger problem comes in the car. If you're right-handed, your seatbelt will make it essentially impossible to get to your weapon. Many people simply put it in their belt on the opposite side, but look where it's pointing. Right to that femoral artery. Right to that huge femoral artery. Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are aligned and you are ready to fire the gun. Hold it like this. Be certain that what you're pointing at, your gun is pointing at, is what you really want to shoot. Also be aware of what's beyond that target in case you miss or in case your bullet goes all the way through your target. Your local range will also have some specific rules, and now's a good time to get familiar with them. You'll always find them on the internet. Negligently hurting or even killing yourself or someone else with the gun would require you to violate one or, more likely, two of these rules at the same time. Let me emphasize that the person who helps you get started must be primarily a teacher, not an expert shooter necessarily, not someone who is tactical. Almost never, no, never, will this person be your significant other. I cannot emphasize that enough. Further, being able to win shooting matches, to have been a Marine sniper, to be a gun writer, or to have been 30 years on the police force does not mean that this person knows how to teach. And you must be ruthless about this need. If the teacher you have first chosen is not helpful, does not analyze what you need, is overbearing, is overly critical, does not help you progress, or if you just plain don't like him or her, simply unload your weapons, smile, thank them, pay them for their time, leave the range. There are plenty of people out there who know how to discover what you need, who will show you how to progress. Never, never let any so-called expert intimidate you. The first part of your new learning experience should not be on the range firing line, but somewhere else, somewhere comfortable and safe. You can then take that introductory gun handling knowledge to practice in the comfort and safety of your own home. A good teacher will help you learn the mechanics of how your gun works, how you will hold it. And that brings me to part 3. Your teacher will help you learn the important parts of your weapon, especially how to make sure that it is safe and does not contain a loaded round. Yeah, friends, the more comfortable you get with handling your weapon, the less it will feel foreign to you when you ultimately get to the range. Your teacher should show you the proper way to pick up the gun, the best way to hold it in your hands for firing, demonstrate the idea of sight alignment, show you how to manipulate the slider cylinder, how to change magazines, and even how to disassemble your gun for cleaning. Before going to the range, simply carry your gun around with you at home. Just handle it frequently. Your comfort is the goal. After a while, it will become an extension of your arms, and you will not feel strange when you're out and about. Oh, if you're going to be carrying the weapon concealed in a holster or handbag, now is a good time to learn to draw safely without pointing the weapon at your non-dominant hand, without pointing the weapon at your body or anyone else. One important factoid though, many people are really uncomfortable about being next to a gun. Unless you are sure of another person's comfort level, do not let them know about your gun, especially if you are intending to carry it concealed. And now we come to this idea of sight alignment. Yes, I know there's no target out there. A few things to notice. First, I'm not a big tactical guy with biceps bigger than an average person's leg. I'm not a master shooter. I'm a little guy. Further, I'm an old little guy. Nonetheless, look what happens when I concentrate on my front sight, keeping my sights aligned as I press the trigger. This distance is 4 yards, 4 meters, which is farther than my front door to the back wall of my kitchen. It's the distance where most confrontations take place. It will probably surprise you that I don't have an aiming point up there on that target cardboard. Yet the bullets seem to be closely grouped in the center of the paper, aren't they? And this is a full power gun, a 45. Now, I don't know how the unconscious mind knows to keep the round centered. Nobody understands that. But I'm certainly glad our mind works that way for us. The big lesson here is that concentration on the sights rather than your target is the key to handgun success. Now let me say that again, because it doesn't make any sense at this point in your shooting career. I know that. To get hits, friends, you have to concentrate on the sights. Never on the target. What's the correct sight alignment? The front sight should be sharply in focus. You're powerfully concentrating on it, right? If you were to draw a line along the top of the sights, the top of the front and the top of the rear would be level, even though that rear sight is a bit blurry. There will be an equal amount of light coming through both sides of the rear notch on either side of that front post. This is your sight picture. This is what you will strive for. That you cannot hold the gun perfectly still will probably bother you. But holding it still is not so critical. Keeping the sights aligned is. These observations probably surprise you. But now let's go back to our home for some dry fire practice. With that knowledge base, you are now set up to do some practice with an empty gun. Most people in this field call this practice dry fire. The mission in dry fire practice, having assumed your good shooting stance and firm grip, is to press the trigger in such a way that when the hammer or striker falls, there is absolutely no change of your sight alignment, and I stress, no change that you can see. Before you begin, you must know the 4 dry fire rules, absolute rules. Confirm that your gun is unloaded. Take all ammunition out of the practice room. Point the weapon in a safe direction. And again, confirm that the weapon is unloaded. Fortunately, this practice develops strong habit patterns that pay dividends at the range, and good for us, costs us no money. And better yet, it's kind of fun. Take your dry fire practice just shy of getting fatigued. You'll find that what will give out first will be your eyes. Continuing to practice after you have reached the fatigue point will not improve your finger-eye brain skills. Psychologists who study these things have shown that our learning actually slides backwards if we continue to practice beyond our tiredness. Start by practicing only about a few minutes, then stop even though you aren't tired yet and you're still having fun. Do that a few times a day for, let's say, a week. With this practice, you are taking a normal brain pathway and making it first into a road and then a superhighway. Another way to say is that you're creating a habit pattern, a pathway that will operate under great stress. A bit about breathing. YouTube videos show really strong opinions about breathing or not breathing or half breathing during our trigger press, right? We all have different breathing and heart needs as we age. Remember, most of the instruction and guidelines have been directed to training 20-year-old healthy military recruits. Another point, I'm told that some Olympic shooters can control when they drop the hammer so that the shot occurs during their heart's pause between beats. Good luck with that, especially as we age. But there is a more important heart and breathing consideration. We may not have all the time we want to make the shot. The target will present itself when it will, not when you wish. Extensive, careful experimentation during dry firing will give you your answer for you as an individual, for your physiologic needs. The goal is for you to fire with absolute control of that sight picture once you decide to shoot. You must experiment to find your breath-breathing technique, the one that, time after time, yields the least sight movement. Bottom line. Once you've decided to fire, make that strike or hammer fall in a really small number of seconds. Keep your eye on that sight alignment picture to see if your alignment changes. Remember, friends, nobody ever won a gunfight by shooting fast. You win by hitting the target. You stop the bad guy by shooting accurately. And that comes down always to sight alignment, trigger press, sight alignment again. Let me re-emphasize, to fire accurately, to hit what you wish, you will need to acquire that, quotes, sight picture. When you've decided to shoot, you will first acquire the sight picture, press the trigger until the gun fires, then reacquire the same sight picture. You always want that follow-through, always. As you progress along your proficiency path, you're going to end up with a fair amount of equipment. Your weapon, magazines, holster or carry purse, ammunition, targets, to name just a few items. A range bag will hold all your gear, so the sooner you get one, the better. Oh, by the way, an important item in that bag will be a pilot-type checklist of gear you will want to bring to the range. Friends, it is ever so embarrassing to get to the firing line and find that you have, say, forgotten your pistol's magazines. And yes, I have done that. But by far the most important equipment in your bag will be for your personal protection. Protection for your vision and for your hearing. Just as important as your gun and ammunition is eye and ear protection. Good protective shooting glasses are really quite inexpensive if you do not need correction. On the other hand, if you are wearing prescription glasses, those glasses will almost always provide adequate safety, but they won't be quite right for handgun shooting, especially if you're more than 45. And why not? The central sweet spot in prescription glasses is always ground to give you your best distant vision. Distant vision is anything farther than 20 feet beyond your eyeball. This will correct your visual acuity for nearsightedness, for farsightedness, for astigmatism, or two of the above, but at distance. Yeah, your front sight's only 2 feet in front of you. With your regular prescription glasses looking straight ahead, you'll never be able to get that front sight in focus, as I said, especially if you're more than 45. If you have progressives or bifocals, you'll have to lift your chin up a bit. A little practice will show you the best chin position. Hearing protection, absolutely critical. You need both plugs and the cup protectors. Standard foam plugs give you only, say, 10 decibels of protection. It's not enough. Today you can get electronic noise canceling hearing protectors for $50, give or take. They help you hear instruction as well as keeping you aware of what's going on around you. That's situational awareness, isn't it? Ignore this hearing protection part of range experience and I guarantee you will have a really unhappy old age. Friends, we are human. We are not a steel vise. If we are to hit our target, 4 human factors will need to be understood and controlled. Our lively body is always in motion. Our heart beats, our gut moves. It is not humanly possible to be absolutely still. That front sight is going to be moving back and forth a great deal. I know more than you want, but that's reality. Keeping the alignment, working on keeping that alignment is more critical than keeping the gun itself perfectly still. Next. It is not humanly possible to drop your striker or hammer with absolutely no motion. Yes, good training and experience will decrease that amount of movement, but a tiny bit will always be there. At handgun ranges, you can essentially ignore the small amount of natural motion, once you've trained yourself, of course. When your gun fires, there is the inevitable Newton's law reaction called recoil. The gun suddenly moves back, up, and generally a bit toward your non-dominant shoulder. Early on, you will be surprised by the amount and the sharpness of the recoil. With practice, with experience, and the appropriate grip, you will tame and control this recoil to get quickly back on target. When we are at the range shooting, your teacher will urge you as follows. Front sight focus. Press, front sight focus. It's that second front sight focus that brings you back on target and gets you ready for the next shot. It's called follow-through. Expect your teacher to emphasize that follow-through thing continually. When your gun fires, you're going to be startled, dramatically startled. That's normal, especially in a new shooter. The first few rounds will cause a full-blown stress reaction in your body. Your pupils will dilate, you will blink, your whole body will likely jerk, and your adrenal glands will release stress hormones. Well, of course, there's just been a major explosion 2 feet in front of your face. What did you expect? With experience and practice, though, you will decrease the intensity of this stress reaction. Trust me, every new shooter feels this startle reaction, yet sooner rather than later, everyone does get comfortable, and their stress reaction's intensity automatically decreases. That's why I recommend you begin not with the handgun that you bought, but with a .22 caliber handgun, which brings me to the next point. No fooling. If you've never fired a gun before, beginning your shooting career by firing a full-power gun will produce a startle reaction more intense than you expect and will pretty quickly make you develop a flinch. Part of the flinch comes from the jolt of recoil, part of it comes from the loud sound, the blast of the gun firing, which is yet another reason to have a good hearing protection on your head. Your jerk stress reaction is totally normal. Now is not the time to be macho. You are likely to have to fire several hundred rounds with a .22 during multiple range visits before you progress to the full power gun. You didn't want to hear that, did you? On the other hand, think of the money you will save firing the inexpensive .22 ammo as you progress along your proficiency path. You'll likely be surprised how tired you'll become when you are concentrating so hard. So while you're at the range, don't keep pushing. Macho never works. Psychologists who study these things show us that if we continue to work on complex eye-hand skills like controlling a handgun, if we progress to the point of fatigue, our learning actually slides backwards. Keep asking yourself, is it time for a rest? Time for a bit of water? Have I had enough for the day? The point to stop is when the range session is no longer fun, not when you are actually tired. Further, you will be surprised when you go home. just how tired you are. As fun as acquiring this new skill is, as fun as shooting in general is, what you are doing is intense. And you can expect to be surprisingly but pleasantly fatigued at the end of your range day. So those are my steps for getting started. My last point. Owning a gun is your right as an American. Remember, the Bill of Rights does not grant you rights, it recognizes your rights. And it's worthwhile looking at the actual words of that document from time to time. Anyone who attempts to restrict those rights is in absolute violation of our Constitution. It is that simple. Having said that, your right brings with it an absolute and terrible responsibility. When a bullet leaves your gun, you are irrevocably responsible for everything that bullet does until it comes to rest. Absolutely 100% responsible. And that power and responsibility, friends, is the real essence of gun ownership. I have confidence that almost everyone watching this video will be able to live up to that responsibility. But if you're in the small minority of those who cannot, you owe it to yourself and to others to recognize that you cannot, then find another means of defense, because you are responsible.